Hello, everybody. Dr. Lee's here, the shameless psychiatrist. Um, I'm known as the shameless psychiatrist because I'm all about parenting and living without shame. I help people take the blame and shame out of their game. And I'm here with Darshana Avila today, and we're going to be talking about sexuality, eroticism, all kinds of stuff. So I'm very excited to have this conversation. Hopefully she will join in a second. But until she does, I want to talk about shame. And by the way, feel free for anyone to ask questions if they have about sexuality or shame. Um, um, as long as you realize this doesn't constitute actual medical advice. So everyone experiences shame to some degree, and when we feel shame, we violate we feel shame because we feel we're violating the social norms that we believe in. I think this is her. Okay. Hopefully they'll ask to, yay. Okay. View request, go live. At such moments, we feel humiliated, we feel exposed, and hi,
Hey,
Darshana, good to see you. I'm so
good
glad to
to
have this
see you, Leah.
talk.
Oh my God,
Yay.
I'm loving your hair. Really loving your hair. I'm like, is it
Oh,
crimped? What?
yeah. No, I put like it was like wild this morning, so I kind of braided it to like keep it from
I
like
love it.
anyway. And I have an asymmetrical haircut, which I just got, which is
Hey, as as
you
we
and
do,
I.
as
I
we
know.
do.
What is it about, sexuality educators and crazy haircuts?
I think it's a little gender blending for some of us, right? Like we get to
Yes.
we get to play across the spectrum, bring some different
Yes.
energies in.
Yes.
That's for me how it feels anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. Um, yes, I'm very maternal, but at the same time, I run a very masculine energy. I like to tell people what to do. So there's definitely both.
I get that vibe.
um, Tell me about your career and yourself, and you could ask me about me, and then we'll get into a conversation.
Oh, great. Yeah, about me. So I have had a really interesting winding journey to getting here, as you know, many of us who end up doing work we're passionate about, I think is the way of things.
Yes.
And I am an erotic wholeness coach, which includes somatic sex and intimacy coaching, but through the lens of trauma-informed, nature-based, and justice-oriented perspectives. And what that ends up looking like is
Ooh.
I work with women and couples primarily. So women and their partners, cis women and whomever they're partnered with is a more accurate way to talk about it. And it's a big, deep diving journey into figuring out all the things that kind of get in the way of having satisfying erotic expression and sex lives. And that's what I get to spend my days focusing on, which is a pretty amazing thing that sometimes I have to pinch myself and say, wow, how did we get here?
Wow.
Yeah. And how did you become
So,
the shameless psychiatrist?
well, I'm all about parenting and living without shame. I feel that we've internalized so much shame in our culture around a lot of things, but sexuality is major because we take in societal norms around, don't have sex till you're married, or around religion, or around our bodies, or so many things we could discuss, all those
Right,
things. And
right.
so then we are always feeling shamed about what is very natural, instinctual, hereditary, genetic, epigenetic. And so I'm all about, taking the shame out of it, and bringing it into the light, and say, be free, and fly, and experience pleasure, and be able to express your needs and your boundaries.
Hmm.
And so, and I think that's my antidote to the Me Too movement. We just got to educate children to be better than we are right now.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
talking openly with children, including about sex, can help delay sexual initiation, sexually transmitted diseases, teenage pregnancy, but also allow them to have like a great, intimate, and fulfilling sex life. Isn't that what we want?
Yes, yes, that's what we want. I know. I was just speaking with a client of mine yesterday who grew up in a very conservative religious household, and we've been working together for about a year and a half now. And yesterday was the first time that they shared with me about an experience of being told that the client's a she and was acculturated as such. And as a young girl, her church and her family gave the message of, your heart is like a paper heart, or your sexuality is like a paper heart. And if you go around and have sex with other people before you get married, every time you're ripping off a piece of that heart and giving it to them. And by the time you get married, what's going to be left for your husband? And I was just, it was one of those moments where I couldn't keep the practitioner poker face on. And I was just, because it broke my heart. And I want to be, mindful of, like, it's not just like a religious disparity here, but, and like that, to give a young child the impression that because they choose to explore the most natural impulses of their body, that they're somehow tearing away pieces of their heart and diminishing themselves. I don't know. I barely have words for the way that makes me feel. It's fury, it's sadness, it's grief. And so, yes, this is where our common ground is. Like, I want more people to get out from under that spell and feel like they can be who they naturally are and experience all the richness of their sexual selves.
Yeah. So let's get into that nitty gritty. I mean, I know you deal more with adults, but like what are the things that you do in your practice to help people heal from their trauma?
Mhm.
That's something I don't maybe know as much about as you would, because I don't
Yeah.
specialize in that area.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all of us really have trauma on some level or another around
Of
our
course.
sexuality. You kind of can't live in the age and stage that we do culturally in the collective. It's like we're steeped in those waters. You mentioned the Me Too movement, and I just brought in some religious influences, right? And so the way that I work with people, I mean, it's bringing a lot of different things in, but as far as the trauma piece goes, it's very much about figuring out what was the missing piece, the missing experience. Sometimes that is having an adult presence who can really be validating and affirming about the impulses that my client had as a young person, and giving them sex education that they didn't receive, or celebrating with them when they're like, oh my God, I just did this for the first time and it was amazing. And instead of having to hide it, they get to actually go back and kind of recreate an experience in our work together that fills that missing piece in, and can then unlock a whole lot of potency and energy in their present moment sexuality and relating. So that's a brief little description of
Well,
how
I
it can
love
be.
that. I have a
Mhm.
bee in my bonnet, not a bee in my bonnet, but I did a great a podcast with a grandma. And she was talking about this role, like this relationship she had um with her grandchildren, in that she was providing a lot of sexual education, because they kept asking her. She was a safe space, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, grandmas, like, well, I mean, we gotta empower the grandmas out there,
Yeah.
because they're not afraid, because they've
Yeah.
been through it all. And like, I think it's so important to really empower the grandmas and grandpas. And I'm not taking them out of it either, because you don't get all you need from just your parents, and we've lost that
No.
multi-dimensionality.
That, I mean, and that dynamic shows up in so many ways with my clients and students and community. It's like we're not made for the very nuclear family isolated way of existence that passes for normal now. And in the past, we would have had a wide variety of different elders and people around
Yes.
us, whether it's older siblings or our aunts or the medicine women or the grandparents or whomever, right, would have been there to help shape and steer and guide us in
Yeah.
all facets of our development. And
Right.
sexuality is definitely among them. And in a lot of cultures, going further back, our coming into our sexual identity, our adult sexual self, was ritualized, was
Yes.
celebrated in a way
Yes.
that clearly is not the case now. And we might not have like a whole lot of conscious longing for something
Yeah.
like that, although some people do, but we definitely feel it in our bodies that there is something missing there. And there is a way that we want our sexuality to be understood and held and celebrated, never mind expressed. So yeah, that's a lot of what I get to do with people as adults is make up for some of those missed experiences. But many of my clients are parents. And so the work that we're doing is also directly helping them parent in a different way and be more sex positive and open and receptive to their children.
Right. Oh, that's so great. Well,
Yeah.
Catherine Zox is the ZOX is the radio show I did with Grandma, and she's a social worker,
Cool.
and I think she's really onto something. And I, encourage in my book I talk about, hey, it's not just about the parents, or maybe you're a single parent, and so you're locking in, gender specific role models that you might want, like you might want. If you're a single parent or single sex parents, you might want to have some opposite sex role models, like grandparents, aunts, uncles, and you really got to charge them with, the idea of like, I give you my permission as parents to bring in these people, to bring
Hmm.
wisdom to my child.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that you're touching on something really important. It's the express permission being given, because I think a lot of us, like I'm an aunt biologically as well as like soul aunt to many children. And it's like, okay, am I allowed? Like, how far can I go in
Hmm.
bringing my opinions, my views, like seeing a moment of like an opening of an opportunity with the children of my life to perhaps impart some education to them, right? So I think as parents, it's really important to give that express permission, and it creates community. It just extends the resources and the support that are available. And I mean, who doesn't need that, especially right now?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think you charge these wise people in your life and say, hey, please talk to my child about X, talk to my child about Y, you know,
Yeah.
and then you'll create this amazing human who, and it's not like they're going to take everything you say, like they're going to take a little bit of everything that everyone says. Like it's not like your kid thinks like what you say as a parent is like the word of God. They take
Yeah.
10% of that. They take 10% of what they get at school. They take 10% what they get from their friends. Take another 10 from the lady, from the coach, and then they create their psyche. And
Yeah.
as many voices that you have in your life that are good influences, that are mature, tap those, because there's going to be a lot of competing voices that are idiots.
Exactly.
There's going to be a lot of competing pornography. There's going to be a lot of
Hmm.
competing social media. So
Yeah.
you got to create more noise in the wise category.
Right. And you just never know whose voice is going to be the one of all those wise ones that it's like, oh, you know what? Like such and such is happening. Okay, maybe I
Mm-hmm.
should go and talk to Leah. Maybe I should go and talk to Darshana right now. I don't want to
Yeah.
talk to mom and dad. I don't want to talk to this to teacher. Like, so we just never know when, like when somebody in their developmental journey, when a child, when a teen is going to decide like, oh, I need help, and they'll remember, they'll
Yeah.
know that that's available to them, which is so essential,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to creating a sexual identity for ourselves.
I
Yeah.
have a friend who's very conservative, and she said, I can't tell my son about sex. He's like 10. And he's like, you have to tell him, you have to tell him. I'm like, okay. So, sit him down, tell him all about sex, tell him about, sperm, egg, how it feels really good, how masturbation is fine, great, and you should do it, as you're alone. And he's looking at me wide-eyed. He's like, boop, 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 and he's
Hmm.
taking it all in. And so I was like, okay, I did it. It's all good. He knows now. And she's like, I was like, and she's like laughing. And then so like a couple of days later, how it takes kids a little time to process things. He's at dinner and he goes, Mom, your friend told me the most amazing thing, but this isn't it, with a crew of 12 in New Jersey at the dinner table. Very, very conservative people. Your friend told me this amazing thing. There's sex, sperm, egg, penis, vagina, that feels really good. And like, oh, God, I was really excited about the whole conversation. What do you think? And everyone at the table's jaws just dropped.
Oh my goodness.
And she's like, oh, my friend's a psychiatrist. It was so funny. I love that story.
Right. I mean, and thank goodness there was that qualifier, right? You're a psychiatrist, so you can talk about these things.
And then
And
everyone at the table goes, oh, well, he really had that down. That was all right.
good. So he can maybe help to free up the conversation. It's funny. I asked my mom about this the other week. I was like, I have zero recollection of ever getting the talk. I'm like, did you guys give that to me? Because I mean, considering where I ended up, it's like, it's funny that I don't actually know. And my mom's like, no. And it's not because my parents were especially sex negative, but they also weren't especially sex positive. And she was like, honestly, I just think we were too awkward and embarrassed. So it's like there's many reasons why parents might not feel comfortable, but how amazing that in your case that you know, the story you just shared, like, all right, so your friend wasn't comfortable doing it, but she knew she could ask you. Like, and the more of us that feel like we can have open and honest and especially conversations that are centering the pleasures of sex as well and making it about the beauty, like hell yes to that.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm about to, and I keep putting it off. And, you know, my daughter's 10. I need to get on it now, but just because I've been busy. But I'm trying to create um, I'm going to call it what did I decide to call it? The the Society of the Moon, and or something like
Ooh.
that. And I am
Hmm.
gonna tap a bunch of my very wise female friends, and I am going to create a um, full moon ceremony for the first moon after my daughter's first menstrual period,
Oh,
where
beautiful.
I'm going to ask them all to write her a letter now and a letter on the event and then a letter a year later, and I'm going to collect all the letters. I'm going to put them into one thing, and then we're all
Mm.
going to get together, and I'm going to find like some kind of cool shaman, and we're going to do like a ceremony with like flowers and fertility and talk about like, you know, what it means to be a woman. I think it will give her such um I mean, I think it will give her so much feeling of community and identity
Mhm.
and like being plugged into her society. Um,
Totally.
so I'm really excited about it. And I
And I
think I'm bringing it up because I think if people are interested, that kind of ritual is so
absolutely.
people always ask me, how do you build self-esteem in children? This is how.
Hmm.
Plug
And
them
it's
into
not
community.
just the children. You know, I hearing what you just described, I would be, my guess is that the women that you invite into that circle and to be a part of that process are going to receive something incredibly beautiful and medicinal and powerful as well, just by being asked to step in to a circle in that way. You know, in many iterations of circling with women, whether around sexuality in particular or in other contexts, just
Hmm.
the way that there's something really kind of almost primordial about that. Like we've been
Hmm.
doing this for a long time. We know, our
Hmm.
bodies know. And I host a full moon ritual that is an astrology and sex magic one, where you know people are welcome to come and explore self touch and what it is to actually connect with your own sexual energy in a group space. And it's amazing what that can unlock, just bringing ourselves together, an open conversation, ceremony, ritualization of this most natural part of ourselves. So yeah, like hearing that, I just
What's
see.
your next one? I'm
I
coming.
know it's February 26th. It's every month, you know, on or very near to the full moon, and yeah, it's like for the mamas, the aunties, the extended adult community, and for the children, the young women, the girls coming of age and coming into their menstruation and into their adolescence, like for all of us, like there's just so much opportunity here to connect to the sacredness and the naturalness of these rhythms of our body, whether it's our blood or our sexual impulses. Like it's just, oh gosh, I could gush about this all day long. Like I want to live in a world where we are back to that being central and back to that being the most natural and normal thing. And this is the way it starts, right? We do it with our people, our children, our communities, and it spreads from there.
Right on.
So
I
your
agree.
daughter is going to be very lucky.
Yeah. Can't wait. It's gonna be really fun. I always think about, you know, that show Sex Education and how I'm
Hmm.
like, am I like that mother?
I love that show.
Yeah, that shows. I think somebody, I'm like, are my kids gonna be like, mom, mom? Oh my God. You know, um, so far they don't know any better. They're just like whatevs,
Hmm.
they think I'm great, but I don't know. We'll see.
I think there's some natural, like, we kind of want to push back against what our parents are into at some point in time. But I think I don't know, chances are, like, unless they're asexual, which is a completely valid expression, like, they're probably going to find their own way into enjoying their sexuality and be really glad that they've got parenting that is, like, supportive of that. They don't have to
Yeah.
hide things. Like, it's such a gift. I remember even
Uh,
in my own adolescence, I'm curious about yours too. It's like, because I didn't have a very repressive upbringing and I could tell my parents, they were the first people I went to. I distinctly remember, it's like, guess what? I had sex last night.
yeah.
And it was like, okay, cool. We should probably make you an appointment with the gynecologist, just have a
Yeah.
conversation about these things. Like, to be able to normalize that and have that be everybody's experience, like, oh God, totally different world we'd be living
Right on. And if anyone listening wants to type in a question, please do. And I want to say that one of the more controversial topics in my book is that no shame, real talk with your kids about sex, self-confidence, and healthy relationships. And one of the more controversial topics is I tell parents to let their child have sex in their home because I
in.
feel it's the only safe space for that to happen.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and of course, not everyone has big homes, so it becomes, one of those, dorm room situations where you put like a tie on the door. But for them, it's like you got to go out and leave your kid alone, go
Yeah.
shopping for an hour, like, and then text them and be like, I'm coming back, knock knock. And because you have to, if you have a small house as opposed to a big house, but if
Yeah.
you have a basement, great. But it's just like it's kind of like you have to provide that safe space, and people are always like,
Yeah.
what? Even for your 16-year-old? I'm like, yeah. What do you think they're going to do behind the bleachers in a car at a party when everyone's drunk and possibly get raped? I'm like,
Hmm.
no. I was
I
like,
love
no.
that you talk about that. it's, it makes perfect sense to me. It's like, yeah, where else would they feel safest, right? And how
Yeah,
can, as a parent, can we support and encourage them to have a safe space where they're be able to honor their experience? Like, that's great point you're making. Like,
yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
Totally going to talk to my clients about that too.
Yeah, good. You should. And like, people are always like, but that encourages them. I'm like, they're gonna do it, whether you encourage them or not. It's just a
Precisely.
question of can you keep them safe? Can you keep them from getting assaulted? Can you keep them away from alcohol while they're having sex? Can you make sure they have prophylaxis? And those are the things that you as a parent and I really believe that if you provide all those things, they will actually probably delay their sexual initiation because it
Mm.
won't be one of those oh, I'm just going to do it because, um, I'll never get another opportunity at home or my parents will be mad or blah. So I got to do it right here, right now in this weird situation,
Yeah.
as opposed to advanced planning.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, advanced planning, knowing how to keep yourself safe and centering pleasure and consent. It's
Mm,
really that simple. And obviously we're going upstream against a lot of cultural conditioning that has stripped much of that away. And so I'm not saying it's easy just because it's simple, but it really is a pretty basic recipe of what we can impart to ourselves. And obviously, of course, getting in earlier, prophylactics, condoms. And that's a question that just came in. What prophylactics? Anything else that
yeah.
you would suggest? Because you're the one who said that word.
About what? About,
There's
sorry.
a question in the chat saying, what's prophylactics?
Oh, I didn't see
And
this
so I
question.
said
Okay.
I said condoms.
Yeah, condoms, oral contraceptives, now I'm in love for teenagers. I'm in love with IUDs, because they've really come a long way, baby. Um,
Hmm.
and the hormonal IUDs are excellent. You wouldn't use copper in a teenager, but even before, even uh, kids who haven't even had sex yet, they can put in some
Cool.
very small IUDs. They have Skyla, Mirena, but Skyla's for younger adolescents, and just a small dose of progesterone doesn't get absorbed into the systemic bloodstream nearly to the same degree as oral contraceptives, and so has less effect. Like, let's say you're worried about, weight gain or mood
Right.
or, um, and it is, they stop your period. How nice is that?
Mm.
If you're a teenager with very heavy periods, bleed a lot, have anemia, amazing.
Yeah, that's cool. And Lucy is saying, yes, we call it contraception here too. That's probably the word I would have used. So, semantics.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's so great to know that there are expanded options out there. And I think as a woman, at any stage, I think it's actually a very empowering thing to explore what works for your body. And there are so many different ways, whether you are choosing to take a medicinal contraceptive or you're choosing to learn about your natural rhythms of your cycle and figuring out what feels good to you and just simply being more attuned to what's going on in your body and how it's impacting you. That right there, I think, is an integral part of what we want to learn about ourselves as we become more sexualized. Like, what does my body need? What does my body want? How does my body respond to different things? And there's no stage of the journey, including contraception, that couldn't be part of that learning process.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm,
I agree.
yeah, awesome. I was not aware that IUDs are being made available for teens nowadays, so that's really cool to hear.
Yeah, yes, yeah. It's and they're tiny, like, and they're not hard to put in. Uh, but there is some problems now with getting them covered by insurances. It's kind of a ridiculous state in America.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and because that costs $700-800, but they last 3 years. Uh, but and then you have to find someone to put them in. But I think they are incredible because also teenagers are um, remarkably impulsive and forgetful. So
Mm,
even if they're taking a pill, they'll miss them, they'll forget to take them. They're not mature yet. So it's
mhm,
great. It's a great. I recommend them all the time to my teenagers who are a little more high risk. And as a
mhm,
parent, they might be struggling with promiscuity or whatever, and I just want to make sure the last thing they need is to get pregnant when they already have mental
mhm,
health issues and go through that decision making process. So I
mm.
really want to make sure that doesn't happen. So
Cool. Awesome. Well, this was a fun little journey
yeah,
of topics that we just came
I know.
across. Like it's a Pandora's box. Like you just never know.
Yeah,
You start talking about one thing related to sexuality, and particularly even, the shame piece that we have danced around and also not even focused so heavily on in the conversation. It's an endless exploration and also too an endless opportunity to do our work of growing whole and finding out what gives us most pleasure and joy in life. So it's good to
yeah.
be in conversation and company with another one dedicated to supporting folks along their journeys.
Okay. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I really also enjoyed our conversation, and I think it would be great to do it again, and people ask great questions, and so thanks so much for coming on with me
Absolutely.
today.
Thank you, Dr. Leah. It was a pleasure. And we'll chat
Thank you.
again soon. Thanks everyone who tuned in.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Bye.